Hey Guru Nation, welcome back to the clinicaltrialsguru.com. This is going to be a quick one of many video series on how a drug goes from sponsor to CRO, how the CRO chooses sites, how the sites recruit patients, how the CRO chooses vendors, how all of this gets reported back to the FDA. There's going to be a lot of videos in this, but one of them, the first one I'm going to do right now is how a sponsor chooses a CRO. As I'm building my CRO, I'm starting to learn more of this, but I've always sort of heard things from other people who were in the know, and now it's pretty cool that I'm actually just starting to get to know it, but I will be documenting my journey more during these videos. So when a sponsor wants to do a clinical trial, they may or may not choose to outsource it to a CRO, all right? Increasingly as of late, meaning mid to early 2000s, sponsors have been outsourcing their studies, the majority of their protocols, to CROs. There are still some sponsors that choose to manage the clinical trials themselves, and they hire their own CRAs. And we're going to get into the CROs and the CRAs and then how the CROs select sites later. That's going to be way too long for one video. In today's video, I'm going to talk about when sponsors choose to outsource a clinical trial to a CRO, what that process typically is like. So if you've seen the movie War Dogs, essentially it's a movie where the United States government puts an RFP out, which is a request for proposal, for vendors to bid on the right to win that contract, all right, and do what the government's requesting, right? So RFP, same thing goes on in clinical trials. So a sponsor comes out with the RFP, request for proposal. They invite certain vendors. So this is typically, these are not publicly announced. So that's the hard part about private CROs. This is all private industry. It's not government. You have to sort of get invited and be allowed to bid. But CROs who get invited, they get to do bid defense on the RFP. So the sponsor will typically put the objectives of the study, what they're trying to accomplish, timelines, how quickly they'd like to accomplish it, how many patients they would need, those kind of pertinent details. And then they allow the vendors to bid. And these are called bids, placing bids, right? So CROs place their bids, and sponsors don't always choose based on who's the lowest bidder. It's not necessarily what they're after. I mean, price is important, but just like anything else, the objectives that the sponsor is trying to accomplish are more important than just price. So typically they'll look at all the bids that come in, and they'll look at the CROs that have the best capabilities within the price that they're comfortable with, within the budget that the sponsor is comfortable with, to do the trial. So oftentimes the sponsor will then reply back to some of the CROs that they're interested in moving forward with and tell them to do a bid defense, all right? So they might say, yeah, we got your bid. We have questions about this particular item, any way you could come down in price, or any way you can improve this process, whatever the case may be. And then the CRO has the opportunity to do a bid defense, right? And so after a few rounds of this is completed, a sponsor will typically choose one CRO, but in many cases, the sponsor will then do a very similar study, and this is true of the larger sponsors. They'll do a very similar trial, sometimes identical, but usually they'll have a few differences, and they'll use one of the other CROs to manage that trial. And then at the end of both of those trials, they'll see which one they liked better, which one was more efficient, which one the sites enrolled more patients for, which one had less overall queries or deviations, and they'll choose that CRO for their future projects. So that's typically how this works. That's how a sponsor chooses a CRO. In the next video, we're going to get into how CROs that win the bid choose sites, assign CRAs to the sites, help the sponsor write the protocol, and then start the FDA and all the regulatory submissions, right? So Hopefully this helps. Stay tuned for more of these. Dan from theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Take care.